Good afternoon.
Guys, I won't get that trailer out my head. That trailer would stick with me for a very long time. So.
We are brought in the live space. Good afternoon and welcome to B.Motion Connects. As you see, I'm here today with Peggy Olislaegers, Tyrone Isaac-Stuart, Monica Gillette, and Merel Heering, and they are the wonderful dramaturgs and facilitators with whom I've been working for the last few months to design and develop ideas for the morning sessions. And we're here today to share some reflections around the process of making these morning sessions, the process of going through the morning sessions, and the process of sharing our invisible practices to become visible. So, Monica, would you like to start introducing how we thought of sharing this time together today?
Yeah, so we spent the afternoon sending out some text messages and collecting some questions from people that were with us in the morning session. But we also want to hear questions from anyone who might be listening right now. So in about 20 minutes, we're going to open that up. And down at the bottom of the screen, you'll see a little hand that you can click on if you want to come live and talk to us with the camera on. Or there's a Q&A box at the bottom that you can type a question in. So about 20 minutes, we'll open that up. So we, being format people of the last few days, decided to give ourselves a format, which is that we're going to throw questions at each other. Really literally throw questions at each other. So we're going to read a question and say who we want of our team to answer it. And I will say, dear team members, you can say pass if you don't want to, or you can redirect, okay, if you think it belongs to another colleague. So the first question I want to start with, I am going to throw at Merel. Can you find words to describe how the chosen form informed and accelerated the content, and how it affected the connection between the participants?
What, could you repeat that for me?
Yes, I can repeat that for you. Can you find words to describe how the chosen form, let's say form is the Zoom form, informed and accelerated the content, and how it affected the connection between the participants? So form, I would take a Zoom form, but also our format, or also the form of us leading into how we got to the sessions. I'm contextualizing it. You can reframe it if you want.
Okay. Let's try. Yeah, it's interesting. Well, I mean, I'm not exactly sure where to start, but I feel like just to relate it maybe to well-being, or sort of the overall theme. I didn't feel in advance it would be possible to create maybe a state of well-being both in myself and others through Zoom. But I feel like in moments I did definitely experience that also. And for me, the act of listening became very central and very helpful. And it, yeah, I don't know, like, can somebody bounce off from that? I feel like there is something in that that I felt really lifted me. For example, in the collaboration conversation, I felt it was like a podcast setting. And for me to get to the sensitivity of the voices and the way they had to negotiate space without seeing each other, and yeah, sort of the journey that brought me on, for example, for me was also a way of listening or conversation that when you see each other live, you have much more sort of the impulse to respond right away. And I felt there was more space for silence, there was more space for rest, and to really sort of activate that listening part. And for me, that then creates for me a great sense of well-being in that format or in that conversation. I'm not sure if I'm answering, but that is my first sort of take on that question.
So do you want to throw a question at someone else now?
Of course, yes. I have it here. Yeah, I'm curious to ask this one to Roberto, which is, in your process together, how did coming into the personal become a support for thinking and configuring the morning sessions? How you see the potential of tapping into the personal?
I think it really is part of the journey we went through together. From March, we started to have weekly sessions of dialogue and share the personal questions or the personal things that happened to our lives with the lockdown, and observations around how our context was changing, and questions in relation to how we could be in a way relevant with our work, with our thinking, with our connections for the time we live in. So I think that the personal experiences and the sharing of these personal experiences have highly informed a sense of, again, observation. We trained, I guess, the art of listening amongst us, but also the art of observing humanity around us, and how the context where each of us is working had similar challenges, because I think humanity for the first time in history, or in the history that we know, went through the same event in a way. And I think being connected and having the possibility to bring our personal experiences, our personal questions, and starting from there, maybe helped us to develop this human-specific approach that we've been also talking of. Deciding to talk about well-being before COVID appeared in our lives, and then deciding to investigate from 4 perspectives, which are health, collaboration, equality, and spirituality, somehow became very contemporary of today when the COVID landed in our territories. Have I answered, Merel?
Yes.
Can I jump in and break the form that for 1 second? Because listening to you, I just realized a parallel of our process of how we got here with the community projects that I've been doing. So I just want to parallel for 1 second. When I have worked with people from the community, some of the projects I've made, people working with who have been impacted by cancer, we would spend 5 months without thinking what a show would look like. We would spend 5 months just moving, dancing, talking, asking each other questions, not asking what's the form. And I just now realized we did something very similar. We spent 5 months or close to not knowing what this form would be for this week. We like enriched and deepened the process and of knowing each other from a different way. And then we understood what the form is, which I think is different than we've done it in past years. There's a little bit of a different format there. But Roberto, I pass it back to you to pass it on.
Thank you, Monica, for sharing that. In fact, we also somehow developed this, again, way of listening and observing into these days, when we were basically after the morning session, having a session where we met and we discussed, and thanks to a lot of responses that reached us via messages from people, we felt that, there was a sense of mutual care going on. We were also taken care by the people that attended the morning session, and they send in some ways some forms of feedback or some forms of information that led us to also reshape some of the ideas that we might have originally thought of. There was a beautiful question, which is, what do you feel created the most exciting connection or exchange in these days? And I would like to propose it to Tyrone, if that's okay for you.
Yeah, for sure. Fourth, what do you feel like created the most exciting connection or exchange? Well, there's a couple that brings up a couple things in me, because there were many different connections and there were many different exchanges. There was the connection, or how I think of it is there's the connection of us five in terms of how we were connected throughout the 5 months, throughout COVID time, just having conversations, and that was super exciting, but just very, you know, that started to become at first just a chance to talk and dialogue, and then we were having so much you know, global conversations, you know, just around things around the world, that this thing sort to come in, and often, you know, we would leave those conversations with a recharge or some sort of emotive feel. So, you know, like, again, excited might not be the word for that, but important for me is in some ways a word, because that then fed into the experience. I think maybe what's and so maybe I'd say that was a connection and it was an exchange. I think also what's an exciting exchange is when the work that we've put in to make this event starts to leave us and starts to become presented and shared, and that, you know, excitement isn't the only word that comes to mind when I think about that sensation, but just the it does feel like an exchange. It's saying, here's what you know, what we've been thinking about, what we've been discussing, what we've been trying to get into, but the moment it falls into the festival, it's no longer about us, and that for me is what makes the exchange very beautiful, is that we are then learning how it feels to be on the other side of having done, you know, the prep work, but having to get this feedback, having to hear what's happening in the city. And if I was to probably condense my thoughts to maybe one thing, I'd say it's very exciting to experience an international festival happening in different parts of the world, and then a local festival, meaning that the performances that happen in Limbasano, and that for me is something I probably would say I haven't experienced before. And so there's something very there's something really exciting and something that I cherish in that exchange. Yeah. So I guess I'll pass it on, right? Okay, Peggy, let's see a question. So yeah, I mean, this is an important one, I think an urgent one. But how do you as a festival communicate the immense expertise, experience, care, detail in the way you curate this? It seems unique and exceptional, but considering your rich history, badly attended by peers. I also want to chat that to Peggy, because I know you also have done other festivals during this time as well, and so there is a you know, there's a resonance of in some ways that for me that's interested. But if anyone else wants to jump in on that as well, please do.
I know that this question is brought to us by a colleague, another dance professional. I think the first thing that comes to my mind is that we live in a time in which there is a variety of spaces and places you can there's a variety of spaces and places available to enter. And as a result, sometimes there also can be an expectation that you will, enter these spaces. So, yeah, it's true that to a certain degree, I expected that some people would attend our conversations in the morning, but they didn't. But I think one of the important things that also we connected to the last weeks, the last months, is how can, especially in the industry of dance, can we give each other permission to hide, not to be available, not to attend. So that, I think, is an important thing to underline for me first. How to communicate things in these times? I think normally we communicate a lot by being in relationship with each other and in the informal spaces that we have available. I think one of the complexities these days is that informal spaces, so the in-between spaces in which you giggle, in which you have a cup of coffee, in which you tell people what you are doing and can make people enthusiastic also about something that they can connect to later on, that's something that we're missing. So I think the coming months, perhaps longer than the coming months, that's something to think about. How do we bring inspiration to a colleague with, like I said, this sensitivity for the complexity we're living in, and that person perhaps is hiding, is perhaps not ready to take even more workload or more information in. So one of the solutions, I think, is to continue connecting one-on-one with people. That feels hardcore. It is hardcore, but to these exclusive one-on-one connections, being part of a bigger web, I think for me that's a crucial way of informing fellow human beings. A result of the internet can be that we think in groups right away, but a message traveling from one ear to another, to another, to another, to another, that, let's say, more traditional way of traveling, I think that is something to stay connected to. Again, I don't know if this is an answer, Tyrone, but hey, that's my first response. Is it, yeah, no. Monica, there you go. Let me go into my notes. Yeah. This was an intriguing one, a difficult one. So,
oh, good. Give me the difficult one.
Here you go. I was triggered by this question. When inviting such a broad range of practices in, super exciting, the colleague underlined, do you also, is there also something lost in bringing the variety of practices together?
Yeah, I was excited by this question because the perception of something being lost is something that I was battling with. I felt like the idea of something being lost or a loss accompanied me this whole time these days, because there was this loss of this vibe and this feeling we all love of being together in Bassano. But almost at every moment where I thought, this digital format isn't doing it, or it doesn't, I'm not feeling good right now, or something feels too stressful about having to confront or manage this liveness and these nerves around this as well, or this distance, I almost immediately would come a message or a response of how much it touched someone or something touched someone. And all the mental gymnastics I did of trying to think how something would land while we're sending it out, I had we all know this feeling in Zoom. You have no feedback. You have no perception of how it's landing. And I had to let go of trying to figure it out and trust that if someone, we had a variety of approaches and practices, but I think that large palette also allows for someone to hook in and find that pearl or that shoot that resonates or connects with them. So I think that palette expanded what people can find in between some pretty thick and weighty topics. I'm gonna pass the next one again. Oh wait, sorry, I'm gonna.
Can I just bounce in on that?
Yeah.
Just to add, because I think I can also speak from the perspective of someone teaching one of the morning practices. You know, I think it's helpful to not assume that that we still don't, that there isn't still work to be done in sort of what some would say is a double consciousness. You know, where you are having to generalize messages to create stuff that is able to reach people en masse stuff, which means it can be very hard to be very specific, especially if you're coming from a community and taken out of the community. So part of the work does become that you're doing, you know, the work of, you know, coming out from the original community that you come from, and then going back into that community, and then also having to do that work. And so I think with the format, or what that question for me, I found it really interesting, is it highlighted that this in some ways on a digital platform has been part of the challenge. How can you be both you know, specific enough to reach the communities that still need nourishment, but general enough so that people have different windows to enter into the dialogue, the practice, all these things. And this is, I think, I just wanted to add that this is still a part of the work in learning how to work with this double consciousness, this multiplicity, and what Adeshana said with regards to the rhizome, you know, I think is a great image, because there is something that's connecting all of it, but I think there are sometimes there's specific elements of the shoot that need nourishment, and for me in this platform, this is very much about widening the lens, and then us returning back to our local lands and trying to bring more nourishment back to that space. So yeah.
So I need to jump in for a second now and open it up to the audience. We have about 8 minutes left. If you want to now type a question or raise your hand, and you'll pop in on the screen with us. While we wait to see if any questions might be coming, I want to pass to Merel again. What surprised you by the digital space? We got this from a few people, what most surprised you? So what do you feel created the most exciting connection or change, or what surprised you about what was possible?
Well, I think the part of that was in my first answer, which was the sensation of proximity. And I think there were other moments that surprised me. For example, when Jamila started and she opened with a love letter, you know, because we've asked them to prepare these 5 islands of thought, and we didn't know exactly what they would bring in. And I loved how she took it, and yeah, to all of a sudden sort of be in her narration. Something that was a moment that I felt surprised by how she took the invitation, let's say, that we gave her. So that was an example. Yeah, I have to say, I find it quite difficult. There's so much that I still need to digest, honestly. But there were very beautiful moments. I think I'm still surprised also by, you know, just generally how touched I can be by listening to deep thought in other people. I don't know, like that was just a general surprise. And I was very grateful for the guests and what they brought. And so, you know, that you have certain people, you know, and that you have them in, but still, even knowing the whole prep and everything that went before, in the moment, I just feel so many moments in which you also, as like being behind the scenes, are so moved by what comes out. Yeah, that would be my answer to that.
May I jump in? I would like to share that one of my surprises and excitement came also from the vocabulary that we shared and developed these days. Some words that somehow popped up and echoed in different conversations from different continents. So, and from people that somehow work with different practices. Both in the morning sessions, there was a vocabulary that was connected to the topic of the day that then was maybe elaborated in different ways during the discussion time, and then again re-discussed, redefined, reshared in the digestion groups where people could share impressions or deepen the conversation, sharing insights from what had happened. So I felt that there was a sort of, vocabulary, or the potentials for a vocabulary to be enriched and more shared.
Yeah, and maybe to bounce off from that, like I do feel like the digestion rooms were in a way a surprise to us as all, if I can say that on behalf of everyone. But I mean, we spoke about it a lot, like how to use that time and that sensation of sort of really realizing that there's many different ways of digesting and being present and trying to create spaces for that. I think has been a really interesting exercise and practice, and I was also surprised, like, and happy to see that people took that with liberty, like to really stay with themselves in how to be in that. So yeah, that's definitely a big part of it as well.
I want to add a surprise that came from one of the morning dance practices, because there's been some questions about how did we deal, or how did we create the environment for care inside of all of this. And for me, one of the signs that we were successful in sharing that responsibility is when I joined the Sangeeta's practice in the morning. She had sensed a desire for connection for people and the kind of this need after the first day. And she asked at the beginning of her practice, can everyone share the phone number of one other person in this practice, and can you stay dialogue partners through the day? I didn't share this with all the other colleagues yet. So on the second day, I was text messaging with someone I've never met about the impressions that I was going through during the day. And that really helped me a lot to have another dialogue partner and a stranger to talk to. So I loved that this surprise came, a proposal from one of our collaborators.
I think it's beautiful what you describe, and I think also for me it was important that it was 4 days in a row, it was the same time in the day, so that this ritual, this rhythm, the time frame, that gives an important extra layer. Also knowing that you will reconnect to people that you saw the day before. Again, when everything is available every time because it's online, we forget the importance of things happening in a certain moment in time and are unique also for that specific moment in time. And I think that's an important thing to stay connected to. That we are also not afraid to have a unique moment, and if you were not there, it's not a problem. People will tell you what happened, and that storytelling is crucial in connections that can be made. And again, if everything is available, we lose our ability to connect via storytelling. You are there via the story of somebody else, which is a very specific way of connecting. And I think that without realizing on forehand, that also has become part of the resonance of these days already.
Yeah, and I feel like that the way the guests sort of took space and really held the conversation with us, and in a way to create the right setting in which they can flourish without too much sort of intervention, and us really being able to take care of the surroundings. I felt that was great to experience as well. And yeah, that I don't know if that was a real surprise, but yeah, in a way also, yeah.
Here comes one question or comment. Do you want to read it, or shall I, Roberto, do you want to read it? Because we have only about 1 minute left to go before we have to wrap up.
Yeah.
It goes so fast.
It's fast. Okay, I'll give it a read. It is very nourishing to listen to your reflections about your experiences. Thank you. I was unable to attend the physical practice morning sessions, and I'm sorry to have missed them. The variety of experiences that have grown from this practice have also opened up new possibilities of touching and connecting in real time when we cannot touch and connect in the same space. Thank you very, very much for that. Roberto, I'm going to pass it to you since you're holding all of us in this from Bassano, your feet there, us extended out.
And you are holding the city of Bassano because it's a city of dance. I keep saying to all the citizens and all of our politicians and people, it's a city of dance thanks to the work that each artist, each person that brings into these formats, into these practices, into these cultural offers. So I want to thank you very, very much. But I want to thank also the technical team that was with us every morning and helped us to prepare these amazing sections. The Springback production team from the Airwaves network. I'm very grateful, and I'm also very grateful for all the people that spend time with us and keep connecting with us. So we could have not done it without you. This is all I have to say right now. And I wish you a continuation of the afternoon with another dance performance that will start very soon. So thank you very much. Stay in touch.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Yeah.